So I'm going to tell you about one of the better days in my life. It was the morning of my freshman year homecoming assembly. I was a high school cheerleader. I did it for 4 years. I loved it. Took it very seriously. So I woke up around 3:30, did my hair, did my makeup, got ready, had to be at school by 5 to practice, warm up, get ready for the big assembly. I was super nervous, so my nerves were taking over my body, but I was like, we've rehearsed this routine so many times, you've got this, it's going to be perfectly fine. My only problem was some of my fellow teammates had a history of bullying me. It was constantly telling me I wasn't good enough, I didn't have what it takes, why am I doing this? So for me, that was kind of like, okay, maybe I was doing something wrong, maybe I didn't have what it took. And so I lost confidence with that, but I was like, you know what, I know, I believe in myself, I can do this, the whole thing's gonna work out perfect. So it was about 5 minutes before the assembly, and we were going through our routine one last time, getting water, fixing our bows, our hairs, all that. And we went out to perform. And keep in mind that we had to do 2 performances because it was a double assembly to accommodate all the students. And so we went out, we performed, and the music started, and I smiled and I pushed through it, and our stunt, I was the flyer, it hit perfectly. And at that moment, I was like, okay, everything worked out perfect. I was like, I did nothing wrong. They're not going to say anything to me. Everything's perfect. Everyone's clapping and happy. And we get off the stage, and we go back into our cheer room, and the girls were like, the stunt next to you fell. And I was like, oh, I kind of saw that out of my corner of my eye. I was like, but we hit. I was trying to be positive. Okay, we did this. And they were like, oh, it's your fault she fell. And I was like, what do you mean? I was over here, she was over there. How does that make sense? And they were like, oh, well, when you put your arms up to hit the high V, they were like, you knocked her. And I was like, no. I was like, we weren't that close. I couldn't have possibly touched her. But then in my mind, I was like, okay, maybe I did. Maybe I didn't realize it because I was too caught up in the moment. And so we watched the footage that my coach recorded, and I was like, look, guys, I didn't hit her. And they were like, yeah, you did. You just don't see it. And I was like, okay, whatever. So we did our second performance, came back. Everyone hit this time. It was perfect. But they still found something wrong. So I was like, okay, I am so done with this. So at that point, I finally was like, I'm just going to say something. I was like, I'm not going to take this, anymore. This is ridiculous. Something I love, I have to, feel bad doing because they're making me feel this way. So I finally was like, hey, I'm done. I was like, you're not going to tell me or blame me for anything anymore. I was like, I'm completely, over this. And they were like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And they kind of, brushed me off. And I was like, okay, this isn't going to fly. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not going to do this right now. So I went up to them again, and I was like, I'm serious. I was like, if you do one more thing, I was like, we're going to have a problem. And they were like, oh, okay. And they kind of, took it, seriously. They were like, oh, maybe we should, leave her alone. I was like, oh, finally, everything's going to be, perfect. I'm going to get to do what I love. I'm going to be happy. And it did get better. They started to get better. They still said comments and made comments, and it was whatever. It wasn't as bad as it used to be. So I was like, okay, I can live with this. It's going to be perfect. I'm going to do all 4 years. I'm going to be happy. And I did, and I think what I took away from that most was that I shouldn't care what people think of me. I should do what I'm going to do, what I want to love. And if people aren't going to be accepting of that, and people aren't going to like me, that's on them, and then it's kind of their problem. So yeah, my big lesson learned from that day was that not everyone's going to like you, and it's kind of something you have to accept and you have to work with. And I've applied that to being in college and everything. It's not everyone here knows me, is going to like me, and it is what it is. But for me, that was one of the greatest days because I finally gained the confidence and gained the nerve to tell them I'm done with, your shit. I'm done. I'm over it 100%. And so, yeah, that was probably, the best day for me because it affected me in many ways. And I still look back at that day throughout my everyday life.